Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to let them know that we are back. We are back. The 25-26 season is officially here. We begin tomorrow, 3 p.m. against Burnley at home. Quite a nice opening fixture. And in this video, I'm going to be talking through what I want to see tomorrow, essentially, from Spurs. The way I think that we should line up to win the game. And to be honest with you, I'm just buzzing for the football to be back. You know, 1 p.m. tomorrow, hitting the pubs, 3 p.m. kickoff on a Saturday is perfect for the first home game back. And we will be there. If you're going tomorrow, hopefully see you there. It's just how good is it to be back? Seriously, I'm literally giddy with excitement just talking about it. But in this video, I'm going to focus on what I want to see from us tomorrow, how I think we can best win the game. And in these tactical breakdowns, normally, or a tactical breakdown, I mean, look, guys, I'm not a tactical, right? I just chat through the game, chat through what I think beforehand. I've never claimed to be a tactico, and I never will pretend that I am one. I just sort of share what I can. But normally in these videos, you know, you're partway through a season or whatever, and you've got a lot of evidence and examples of what this team have been doing, what you think their lineup will look like, if they've got injuries, etc. Heading into a new season against a newly promoted team that you've not seen anything from, I'm just going to focus on Spurs in this video. There's nothing really to talk about with Burnley. In my opinion, I predicted them to finish 20th, to go back down again next season. We have to be beating them at home. Like, we just have to. There's no if buts or maybes. There's no sort of excuses there. They've not had a great transfer window. They're still lacking in so many areas. It's a championship squad, to be completely honest, and I expect nothing more than a win. But this is how we best win. Now, I've got the team out here that I would like to see play, and there's I made a couple of changes from the one that I actually tweeted, and there's also a couple of things that I think could happen differently. And it feels mad to be talking about players getting a rest when we're in the first game of the season, and people were telling me that yesterday on Twitter, and I think that's fair enough. I completely hear that, you know, but I have gone with a couple of players to have a little rest because we played in the Super Cup on Wednesday night. It was obviously a big game. Burnley at home. We shouldn't need an absolute full-strength team that we played on Wednesday night to beat Burnley. And obviously, the players that I've chosen to give a rest to is Pat Matasar. He's played, I think, basically every minute of pre-season for us. At least the Newcastle, Arsenal, and then Bayern Munich and PSG games. I mean, he's playing in all of them, and I just think he put in such a shift on Saturday that I want to have him fresh for the next week against Manchester City. Now, could he play and be fine? Yeah, of course. Sar's got an absolute engine on him, but I don't really want to take any risks. I think there's better options we can go with in midfield, playing against what I presume will be a very, very deep block that Burnley employ. Obviously, Burnley last season, best defensive record in the Championship, broke the record. I think only conceded like 19 goals or something crazy, but a lot of that back five that made that possible has gone. Is it Egan Riley? I think one of their centre-halves, well, one of the two starting centre-halves is gone. They've obviously kept hold of Esteva, which is a very, very good sort of keep for them, a player that they haven't sold. They've obviously lost James Trafford as well, and that's kind of been torn apart a little bit. I think they've made a couple of centre-half signings, but either way, I expect quite a low block trying to hit Spurs on the counter. So this team, I think, is best set up to play against that, to help break down this Burnley team, because that is going to, what the focus is going to be on, is breaking down a team. Now, obviously, Vicario, Van de Ven, Romero, Porro, Spence picks itself. Unless Destiny Udogie is back fit and available for the game, I'd still probably have him on the bench and keep him for Man City away, and that back four is absolutely fine to play. Again, you know, Porro going to have a big focus on him for creativity against this low block. I expect him to be moving up in these areas here, sort of coming inside the pitch. If it's Brennan Johnson on the right-hand side, which I've got in there right now, you know, overlapping, getting those balls into the box, getting that quality delivery into Dominic Solanke, who I also think will hopefully be fit enough for the game. But moving into the midfield, now I have gone with Bentancur, who again has also played a lot of football, starting the Super Cup on Wednesday, but I think you do need sort of one of Bentancur or Paulinho in there. I mean, you could go Sarr and Bergvall. I really like the idea of a Sarr Bergvall pivot, but I just don't think Frank will for this game. I think, you know, you want that maybe a little bit more seniority, a little bit more security in there in Bentancur. And I think Bergvall is key for this game. I think Bergvall is somebody carries the ball incredibly well, can pop up with a goal, you know, creative passer. I think he'll have more use sort of pushing forward as an 8 in that final third. And I think that, you know, I feel like a lot of people have just forgotten that Bergvall's one of our best players last season, our best midfielder, one of the best sort of users of the ball, energy in that midfield too. And I think that, you know, because he is fresh, because he only played 15 minutes in the Super Cup, he's a no-brainer to start against Burnley for me. And again, like I said, against that low block, that passing quality, that carrying quality as well, creativity in that midfield, able to evade a press as well. Of course, if Burnley do come on a little bit higher to us, and I think Bergvall is a no-brainer, and I really like that midfield of Bergvall and Bentancur. Both can pop up with goals too. Both can make those late sort of number 8 man runs into the box. And I like that. Now, the front four is obviously where I think the biggest questions come into play and sort of where it's almost most important. Against a low block, you need wingers who are extremely comfortable on the ball and can really keep the ball and sustain pressure on your opponents. And that is why I've gone with Wilson Odobert on the left-hand side. Incredibly comfortable winger, technically really, really good at holding onto the ball, can take on his man 1v1, can cause sort of separation in the box, get those shots off, get those crosses off, get those low balls flashing across the box, can come inside, can go on the outside, and that is hugely important. He's always going to keep his fullback guessing. He's going to be relentless. He's going to win us corners. He's going to win us throw-ins, which we've seen we can be so effective from. Hopefully we can Burnley our way to a win against Burnley. That might be quite nice. And I think Odobert is the best option out on that left-hand side, just in terms of that ball retention, in terms of recycling possession as well, keeping that pressure on Burnley, sustaining that pressure on, and eventually, hopefully, seeing them crack. And like I said, somebody who's so comfortable receiving the ball in any position. Jed Spence getting overlapping him, Wilson Odobert cutting inside, creating opportunities from the more central spaces too, is something that you're probably going to see a lot if he plays. And I think Thomas Frank likes Odobert, and I do think that he will start on that left-hand side. And I think that, against his former club, he may be quite up for it, which as well, would be great for us. And a goal threat, an assist threat too, and I think Wilson Odobert is the option on that left-hand side. I think, probably our most technically secure winger as well, especially out of the options that we've currently got available, Johnson, Tell and Odobert. So he would start on that left-hand side for me. I've gone with Brennan Johnson on the right-hand side. I was umming and ahhing about playing Odobert off the right and Tell off the left, or Odobert off the left and Johnson on the right. I think he'll start with Johnson on the right. And I think that that's probably the right option. I think a lot of our play will go down the left-hand side. I think a lot of our play, obviously will go down the right-hand side through Pedro Porro as well. And that's fine. I think Porro will provide that creativity on the right-hand side. And then Brennan Johnson will sort of be that box threat. He'll be in and around there, sniffing out those Wilson Odobert crosses, sniffing out those Jed Spence cutbacks, Mohamed Kudus creating things, and Johnson just being a threat in and around that penalty area. Again, I don't want Brennan Johnson that involved in build-up, because that's not where his strengths lie. You need him as sort of that finisher in and around the area, sort of capitalising on what he is good at. And that is where I think him and Wilson Odobert would actually be a really, really nice wing pairing, because you kind of got that balance. Wilson Odobert, who can come a little bit deeper, receive the ball, go relentlessly 1v1, take on his fullback, cause things to happen. You've got Brennan Johnson in there as that constant threat for Odobert to hit. So I like that as a wing pairing. If it doesn't work, obviously Matisse Tell is there to come on. Matisse Tell is somebody, again, who I think is more of a box threat, somebody who can create that separation in the box, is going to get a high volume of shots off, and maybe if we're struggling to break down that lower block deeper into the game, he could be a nice option to come on and sort of get shots around the edge of the box if they're sitting really, really deep, and sort of creating those opportunities for himself. Hopefully Tell, bounces back. He's had a really, really tough week after that Super Cup, obviously being racially abused, which is absolutely disgusting. And I mean, aside from that as well, just the pile-on that was caused from a kid missing a penalty, the fact that he was brave enough to take it in the first place, I genuinely think it's grim. And he's a player who has been with us for 6 months only, and he's got a big future. Nobody can tell me differently. And Matisse Tell, I'd be absolutely happy for him to start in that game, and maybe Thomas Frank does it to give him an opportunity to shut those people up and to just give himself a bit of confidence, and I do think that he would be able to do that. So I'm absolutely happy with Tell as an option. I think if Tell starts, Odobert still has to be in that starting 11, so it would look a little more like this, I think, with Tell on there. And again, I like this because Odobert plays very well off the right-hand side. Again, can go either way, has a very good left foot, very comfortable dribbling with both feet, but I am going to stick with Brennan Johnson. You could also maybe play Odobert off the right and Richarlison off the left for a similar thing to Johnson and Odobert, with Richarlison sort of getting into that penalty area, making himself a nuisance, almost making it too up front at times potentially. I wouldn't mind that either, and I think Richarlison played brilliantly on Wednesday night, but it's again, Richarlison played 70-75 minutes, had a big pre-season. Would it maybe be ideal to rest him? I think Dominic Solanke comes back into the team up front, had 20 minutes on a Wednesday night in the Super Cup, and I think we need him back for that box presence, for that threat in the box, and hopefully it's a goal-scoring start to the season for Dom. I really, really hope that he has a big year this year in front of goal. Again, a little bit of a point to prove for him. I think that's the area in his game that he does need to work on the most, and I think against low blocks, like against Burnley, that is the key time for us to really see those improvements in his game, for him to be getting shots off slightly quicker, to create that separation for himself, to sniff out opportunities for himself, and just, strike the ball cleanly and cause the goalkeeper to make saves and score goals for us. That is the thing that I think he has to work on the most in his game, his box presence. And yeah, I think you'll see hopefully the start of that with Dominic Solanke on Saturday. Now, Mohamed Kudus in the number 10 is an interesting one, because obviously I think a lot of people have suggested going something like this, having Kudus on the right, Odegaard on the left, and then playing something like this with Sarr in the 10. I just don't think that works as well creatively. And I think that you'd rather have... I think we can afford definitely to have Kudus in that number 10 role. And I think, him picking up the ball in those central areas, being creative, drifting out to the right-hand side if he wants to, drifting out to the left-hand side. I'd give Kudus like almost just a completely free role on Saturday. Just roam where he wants in and around these areas. Get on the ball. Just get Kudus the ball. Allow him to be creative. Allow him to take shots from outside the penalty area. Allow him to run in past Solanke. Cause a nuisance in the box as well. Out wide. He's going to drift out wide. He's going to take on his man 1v1. He's going to create things. He's going to cut inside. Those lovely left-footed crosses that he can put into the penalty area. I just let Kudus basically just play in that 10 and do what he wants. Do as he pleases. Go and win us the game, because that's the kind of maverick that Kudus is, and that is what he can do for us. So that's kind of how I'd like to see him utilised in that role. And I think that team gets the job done. I think that team beats Burnley, hopefully, 3-4-0, like comfortably. I really, really do believe that. I think there's a lot of creativity in this team. Pedro Porro, I think, when we're attacking, it's going to look a lot like Dominic Solanke occupying his man in the box, Johnson trying to get around these areas, Porro up in these areas, Mohamed Kudus is hanging around here, Odegaard sort of hanging out wide, 1v1 dribbler, but also could come inside and create in these pockets in the number 10 with Jed Spence going on the overlap. Bentancur and Bergvall pushing up, receiving the ball on the edge of the penalty area. Both decent strikers of the ball from range too. And obviously Van der Romero will be playing quite high. So I think that's some sort of the framework that you'll see a lot of the time in possession, with these players occupying these sorts of areas on the pitch. And I think the Burnley are going to have a lot of different threats. And if we don't score against Burnley, I'll be absolutely amazed. If they can deal with all of those threats in their first game back in the Premier League, then fair play to them. I will be amazed. And hopefully it doesn't take, later in the game for substitutes to be made. But I think if it does, you'd be looking at Richarlison as somebody who can sniff out a chance for himself in the box. You'd expect he'd come on in like the 60th minute anyway, due to Dominic Solanke returning from injury. Maybe Destiny Udogie comes on in the second half, and you have, an overlapper again, that left-footed player who can get to the byline, cut the ball back. Matisse Tell, like I mentioned. Kevin Danso, we need a long throw, could potentially come on as well. But that's how I'd set up against Burnley. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think, what you would like to see, what players you'd like to see, how you would set up. Hopefully, fingers crossed, by the end of this week, we have some more news about transfers in regards to, obviously, Iberra Eze and Savinho. If we got those two players in, then I think they basically go into the starting 11 straight away, and we look like a stronger team already, obviously, and they'd be two absolutely fantastic signings. Especially Eze. Please get Eze over the line, man. I need that guy at my football club. So fingers crossed for all of that. Fingers crossed we get a result tomorrow. If you are going to the game, I will see you there. And up the Spurs. We are back.